brain practical bucket. This is only a fraction of what I have, right? Okay, so what is this structure here?
The dura?
This is the dura mater, right? So you have the dura mater you need to identify, and we have some external structures to identify on like a whole brain. So on a whole brain like this would be a good way for me to do most of the nerves. So what is this first cranial nerve?
1.
It's cranial nerve number 1, which is the olfactory nerve. Remember, if you're naming a nerve, a cranial nerve on the exam, you can't just give the number or the name. You have to give me the name and the number. And that mnemonic that I gave you guys, which is once one takes the anatomy final, very good vacations are had. That gives you all of the first letters for each cranial nerve, and it gives it to you in order. So you know, depending on which cranial nerve you're at, what number it should be. So you should be able to name and number them. So you have 1, and then you have 2 here, and 3 is harder to see from this view. Usually we have to dissect it for seeing 3.
So the test, are we going to be handling it, or are we just
No,
gonna be
it's just going to be in place. So you have 1, 2 is here. This is number 3 right here. 3 is usually fairly big and fairly easy to find. And it sits up here on your pons. Okay? And then number 4, we have a small remnant of number 4 right here. Let's see if this one has a better number 4. So this one you can see number 4 right here, coming in from the side. Oh, I just broke it. Let's see. So this has a very good number 4 here. It just looks like a little worm that's coming up from the cerebellum. Okay, so that's number 4. And then on this brain, this entire big chunk right here, all of this is number 5. This entire gigantic chunk. So it will be just a large hard spot right here on a brain that's had the dura mater removed. So that's number 5. Okay. Number 6 always looks like a little antenna sitting here. This is number 6. Okay. So on this one, again, you have this little antenna right here. That's number 6. Here you can see your number 6s right there. And right there. And then we have number 11 is the last one that I want you guys to know, which on this one you can see this nerve coming off right down here, like a little wormy structure here. That's your number 11. That's the accessory.
that big one?
Yeah, this like worm structure right here. That's 11. Okay. So then, for your nerves versus structures, if I pin this and I ask you what nerve it is, what cranial nerve, then you give me the name and the number. If I ask you what this structure is, what would you call the structure? Optic chiasm. What is this? This is the pituitary gland. Okay. And then we go into the brain, and you're going to have to know multiple structures here. This is a pink feathery stuff that's coming out of one of your ventricles. What do we call this?
Choroid plexus.
This is your choroid plexus. Okay. It looks a little pinkish compared to the rest of the brain. The brain is very like pale, peachy color, and this stuff is pink, and it kind of looks feathery. So when you see this on a pin, you would say that that's your choroid plexus, and it'll ask you for like the pinkish structure that is running over the pin, or the pink structure that's pinned. Okay. So then, what is this big white chunk up here?
No, the corpus callosum.
Corpus callosum. Okay. And then you have down here a fornix. And if I open this ventricle up, you have more choroid plexus here. So you see it's very like a feathery looking structure. Okay. So if I have this pinned and I ask you what the cavity is, you would say that this is the lateral ventricle. If I pin it and ask you for the structure, what I'm asking for is the septum pellucidum, which is usually going to be a little bit torn on the brains. For this one, yeah, the septum pellucidum was on the other side.
Inside.
Probably. The septum pellucidum is like a little, like I've torn it right here. This was the septum pellucidum. So on the brain dissections and on the models, where the sticker is, if it says cavity, I want the ventricles. If it says structure, I want whatever structure is found there instead. Does that make sense? Okay, so then you have a big round structure here. What is that?
Thalamus.
Thalamus. And then right below the thalamus here in the front, hypothalamus. What is this?
Is that the pundicle?
This is the optic cranial nerve. So this is cranial nerve number 2. Where if you turn it over, you can see it making the optic chiasm. Which you can see it better on this one. Because if I'm pointing to this, you can turn it over and you can see that that's going to the optic chiasm. That's your cranial nerve number 2. Okay, and then this structure here nobody. This is the mammillary body right there. It's above where your pituitary gland would be, and this is a large portion of your, or this is your infundibulum there, which you're not going to see because it's going to be really shortened. So that's your mammillary body, and you can see in this one even better that you have this circle structure, and that's your thalamus, and then your hypothalamus, optic nerve, mammillary body. And we have this gland here. What is this gland? Pineal gland. And then here together, if I have both of these pinned, what do we call it? If I pin both of these together.
Yes, corpora quadrigemina.
If I pin both of them together and ask you for the structure, this is the corpora quadrigemina. Okay. If I pin only one, what do we call them? Superior colliculus or the inferior colliculus. Okay. And then here, what do we have for the cerebellum?
Arbor vitae.
Arbor vitae. Okay. And then we have your lateral ventricle, right? And then what is this area? Third ventricle. And then you have a groove here, the cerebral aqueduct. And then here, what is this cavity?
Fourth ventricle.
The fourth ventricle. And then we go into what?
The central canal.
Central canal. Okay. So what is this portion of the brain called?
Medulla oblongata.
Okay, and then above the medulla, right here, a pons. I believe that's all. Am I forgetting something? I think that's all for the dissection. Okay, so it's not a ton for the dissection. The harder part on the dissection is going to be remembering all of the cranial nerves. Okay.
Can you say again the nerve naming? Like, is it olfactory nerve number 1 or number 1
Yeah.
olfactory nerve?
It doesn't matter as long as you put the name and the number.
Got it.
Both of those have to be in your identification of the cranial nerves. So if you call it cranial nerve number 1 olfactory, or you call it olfactory cranial nerve number 1, I don't know.
Okay.